All right, there we go. Well, as we did last week, a little tradition of mental purification. So, not a moralistic thing, but just an opportunity to kind of take a look at what it is we're carrying internally. Sometimes we are rushing around in the morning trying to make it on time, maybe to meditation here. There's lots of things going on in your busy life. And so there can be sometimes just a feeling of anxiousness, a little bit of anxiety, stress. You can be aware of those things. And when you notice them, it really is possible to release them. So we find we can do that. So it's nice to just sort of look for anything you're carrying, any baggage that would be helpful to put down. And then you can pick it back up again after our time together and work with it more skillfully. So that's what we're looking at now. And we'll also set our intentions. A helpful intention is may the merit of our practice here today go to the benefit of all living beings. So the compassion, the loving kindness, the appreciative joy, and the equanimity, not only does that help us as individuals, but it helps everyone around us. And eventually, I think all beings are affected positively by it. So with that, I'm going to ring this bell. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. And welcome again. We'll start with our guided meditation. So if you want to do anything to get comfortable, and again, there's yoga mats in there. There's cushions here. Feel free to reconfigure this stuff. These cushions here, you can move them around. There are kneeling benches. Chairs are great. Just whatever feels comfortable for you. And there's some blankets in that closet too if anybody's chilly. And sometimes it's fun to experiment a little bit. You might try a cushion or a posture for a few minutes and see that you like it, or you might try one and then return back to your chair or something, and that's perfectly fine. So as we go through the meditation, if you need to move or adjust your body, feel free to do it. You don't have to hold perfectly still. Most of the work we do is internal, in the mind. So we just let go of conflict in the body, and that's a way of getting peaceful. Before we start the meditation, I wanted to share a little bit about the peculiarities of this practice, this meditation practice that we do together, guided meditation. There's some specific things that we're doing within this meditation, and so I think it would be helpful to kind of review those, so you understand what it is that we're doing during the meditation and what that accomplishes. So one of the first things we do is we start to become aware of sensations on different parts of the body. And what we learn is that sensations occur on every part of the body continuously. But we're usually unaware of these sensations, and so we react to them blindly. We react with some of the words we used last week: craving, clinging, and aversion. There are sensations we like. There are sensations we want to hang on to. There are sensations we don't like. And so the reactions that come out of those sensations is this craving, clinging, and aversion, negative emotions sometimes. When we're aware of the sensations, we're able to allow and accept them. And part of this process is letting go of tension. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And so the practice in the beginning of meditation is called samatha. That means calm abiding. And so we're using the sensations of the body themselves as a way of cultivating equanimity. So that's the focus on the sensations as we go through the body. Just noticing all these different sensations in the body, releasing tension, making peace with the sensations in the body, not pushing anything away, not trying to hold on to anything. The result of that is that you get established in what is called calm abiding. So you're just in a very peaceful, quiet state of body and mind. And then we begin to move into the second phase of the meditation, which is called anapanasati, which is the breathing meditation part. And we focus on the triangular area of the nose. The reason we do that is to begin to focus the mind into a sharper and sharper area, smaller and smaller area. And that's usually when distractions start to arise. But we are trying to be fully aware that distractions have arisen. Distractions themselves help us strengthen our focus and purify the mind by not reacting to them negatively. So when distractions come up, sounds in the road, sounds in the room, a little twinge of pain or a tickle in your body, you're aware of these distractions, not a problem. You just return your awareness to the focus of meditation, the triangular area of the nose. When we do that repeatedly for a while, we're starting to develop a new habit, which is a general awareness of the body, full body awareness on at least a basic level. And we're aware when these sensations start to come up and the reactions of tension and anger and dis-ease. So we start to create this new habit, which is every time I feel something that I would normally react to with negativity, I'm aware of it because I'm mindful and I'm moving myself to this place of equanimity. So we're kind of doing it intentionally. Soon it becomes a habit. Soon it becomes natural and automatic. And then you'll start to notice some neat things, like you'll be out in your normal life and something will happen that normally would have gotten you pretty uptight or upset. And you'll realize that you were just able to deal with it in a very calm way without getting upset. And sometimes you'll have that. It'll be like a pleasant surprise. It's like, oh wow, I didn't get mad this time. I usually get upset when that happens, and this time I handled it pretty well. You'll start to see that about yourself. So practice being fully aware of everything that is happening within the framework of the body and the mind, not reacting with any negativity, returning to equanimity over and over, and these new healthy habit patterns will arise. So just kind of an outline of what's happening within that guided meditation practice, why it's important, and why we do it the same way each time, roughly the same way each time. So I just wanted to share that. So now we'll go ahead and do that meditation together. So again, if you're comfortable, let's see if I can get Lucy to come. Hey, Lucy, come on, honey. Come on, honey. Come and sit with Dad. Yeah, come on over here. No, not Jeff, not Tam. Come on. Lulu, come on, honey. Come on. Lucy. Hi.
Oh, fine.
Yeah, okay. Come on. Good. Okay. You be in here. We'll all meditate together. Okay? All right. So, if you want to start by closing your eyes. The reason we do that is just to eliminate the visual distractions that sometimes make us think. So we let the eyes close softly. We let the breath flow freely through the nose. Just let it come and go however it wants to. If you need to breathe through your mouth for comfort, that's fine too. But breathing through the nose is helpful. You want to have some symmetry in your body so that you're not supporting all your weight on one side. That helps to keep you balanced as we go on through the practice. So just releasing conflict from the body, finding a place of balance, finding a way that is comfortable for you to be. And if you need to move in a few minutes, that's perfectly fine. Go ahead and do it. So I'll sound the bell, and then I'll begin to guide us through the practice. So just let yourself follow the sound of the bell into silence. Feel it pulling your awareness inward, and let it be a welcoming invitation to turn your awareness inward, to let go of the world around us, to let go of the habit of being interested in the outside world, engaged with it. Just for a while, we'll turn the senses inward, become aware of the inner world, become aware of the feeling of sitting or laying here in your own body. There's a feeling of presence, that feeling of just being here. Let yourself experience that. Let that be your anchor. Begin to feel the stability and the solidity of the body, the peacefulness that seems to naturally be there. And with this awareness established of the body, let's bring the awareness up to the top part of the head in the area of the scalp. And for a few minutes, a few moments, just open up your awareness to any physical sensations in your scalp. So just observe for a few moments. And as you observe, you might notice that there are temperature sensations in the scalp. You may feel warm or cool to you in the room. Sometimes there is a little detectable air movement. You might feel that moving on the hair or the skin of your scalp. Sometimes there are sensations on the surface of the skin, like a little tickle or a pulsation or an itch. So we're just opening awareness to any of these physical sensations, observing them as they arise and pass away. And we're not judging any of these either. We're remaining objective. We're just aware, just aware. Here's a sensation. I follow it. It fades away. A new sensation arises. I follow it. It fades away. No judgment, no good or bad, just observing objectively. And sometimes as we are observing, we'll encounter areas of tension in the body. And this can be true in the scalp. So if you notice any physical tension, you can just release that. Just allow it to leave your body. Let it go. We know that tension is an added state to the natural state. And this is why when we discover tension, we just invite it to leave. We allow it to go. And this helps to give us greater freedom and peace and stability. So we just let go. And we continue to observe the sensations as they come and go. Now from the scalp, you can move your awareness downward into your forehead, and then also into your temples. Let it pass down through your eyebrows and into your eyes. And once again, just observe the physical sensations. Temperature, air movement, sensations on the surface of the skin. And you're observing what is true for you in each moment. There's nothing that you need to be feeling or looking for. There's nothing you shouldn't be feeling. This is just whatever you encounter, you observe objectively. There's no need to put a great deal of thought into it. It's just a simple process of watching. And if you discover tension, often we'll find it in the forehead. The brow is furrowed. or sometimes the temples, there's tightness there, or we find that our eyebrows are raised a little, or maybe the eyes are squinted. So any tension in any of these areas, we allow it to leave the body. We just open up, give it permission to leave, and it does leave. Sometimes I use the image of finding a butterfly inside your home on a warm summer day, a butterfly trapped on a windowsill. And if you saw that, you'd walk up with great kindness and compassion. You'd cup that butterfly in your hands, carry it outside and release it into the trees or the garden, and you'd smile. You'd wish it well. There'd be great kindness and compassion. In the same way, when we find tension in our bodies, we release it like the butterfly. So we're not generating any negativity towards this tension, just letting it go. So now from the temples, feel the movement of awareness as it travels down into your ears. And I'll start naming a few parts of the body here. Just repeat the process of observing and releasing as I name these parts. So now in the ears, observing here, and feeling as that awareness flows forward into the cheekbones and through the face, through the jaws. From the eyes, observe as the awareness moves down. It passes through the nose and lips and mouth and chin. And you're aware of these different sensations. Sensations coming and going, arising and passing. We just accept them all completely. And we let go of tension. If your teeth are clenched or your lips are pursed, just let it go. And now we'll observe as the awareness moves downward. Feel it moving from the chin down into the neck. You'll feel it in the throat, the front of the neck, moving to the sides of the neck and the back of the neck. Observing these sensations. And now moving downward further into the shoulders. Again, as you move the awareness, see if you can really feel the flow as it moves. So once in the shoulders, we notice sensations here. Sometimes if you're leaning against a chair or you're laying on the floor, you might feel contact as one of your sensations. You might feel bearing weight. You might feel contact between your skin and your clothing. So these are additional sensations to be observed, if present. And then we let the shoulders drop if they're shrugged. So as we move from part to part, in each place we're becoming more and more peaceful, accepting the experiences of the body as they are, and then moving from the shoulders down into the upper arms now. We'll spend a moment with the biceps, the front of the arms, observing and releasing. Sometimes we use the phrase know and let go as we move through the body. So we can move that awareness to the inside part of the upper arm and know and let go. Moving around to the triceps, and then moving finally to the outer surface of the upper arms, from the shoulders all the way down to the elbow joints. Just observing, releasing. Let the awareness flow downward through the elbows now, and feel that warm, soothing flow of awareness traveling down toward the wrists. As you move, there's awareness of sensation and just an automatic releasing of tension. Moving through the wrists now, awareness travels into the hands. And in the hands, we observe the heels of the hands, the sensations there, unique sensations, and then moving to the palms, those unique sensations on the top sides of the hands. And we observe the thumbs and fingers. And then finally we move our awareness down to the fingernails. And here we can just take a few moments to observe attentively and see if any subtle sensations make themselves known in the fingernails. And sometimes we do feel that. So now from the fingernails, we're going to make a move up to the top of the chest. So try to maintain a continuity of awareness as you move. And we can spread that awareness across the collarbones and then let it start to descend down through the chest. Feel it moving all the way down to the base of the sternum. And then from there, allow it to expand outward through the rib cage, observing, releasing, accepting. From the rib cage, we move the awareness to the underarms for a moment, and then let the awareness begin to flow downward through the sides of the body all the way to the waist. Stay attentive to the sensations. It can be easy to drift off as we progress through the body. And from the waist now, bring your awareness forward into your belly. And if you observe, your belly rises and falls with the breath. There are sensations associated with that. There's a feeling of expansion and contraction sometimes. And again, there's that feeling of contact or movement between the skin of your belly and the clothing. So you can be aware of that and let all the tension go. Let your belly be free. I sometimes picture a toddler's tummy. When they run around, their bellies just hang out free and relaxed. And let our bellies hang out just like the toddler's belly. And now, from the belly, we'll move our awareness around to the top of the back. So we'll start at the base of the neck there and let the awareness flow down through the shoulder blades and through the upper third of the back. Again, just observing objectively all the sensations, letting the tension go, moving downward into the middle third of the back. Same process, just observing, letting go of tension. Try to have a quality of being interested as you move through the body, really curious about the sensations. It helps you to focus on them, moving down into the lower part of the back now, observing, letting that tension go. Now, in our backs, many of us experience sensations that we might consider difficult or unpleasant, maybe fatigue or just a lifetime of wear and tear on the body. And so there might be pain in the back. And we find that it is difficult to be objective in observing unpleasant sensations, that we tend to dislike them and generate aversion toward them. And when this happens, we can feel that there's a disruption in this peaceful, soothing flow of awareness, that it is difficult to release tension in these cases. So what we find helpful is to notice the expansiveness of your own awareness, that really your awareness is unlimited in its expansiveness. And that as you move down through the back and you encounter difficult sensations, that there's enough room for you to just allow them to be as they are, without reacting with negativity, just letting those sensations be, They are the truth of this moment. So we allow them to be, and we find that we're able to start to release tension around them. And what we've done is started to change our relationship with our circumstances. This is very helpful. So now moving awareness from the lower back down into the sit bones. Feel it moving into the sit bones. There's a feeling of contact there, a feeling of bearing weight of the body. And we move through the hips, and then let the awareness flow through the pelvis, being aware of all these areas. Again, letting the tension go. And then moving the awareness down into the thighs. We'll spend a moment observing the top surface of the thighs. There are sensations there and tension, which is different from rotating outward and looking at the outer surface of the thighs. And then we rotate to the underneath, observing, letting go, and then moving to the inside part of the thighs, from the top all the way down to the knee joints. And we let that awareness flow right through the knee joints. Feel it moving down into the calves and shins. Feel awareness flowing down through the ankles. Feel it moving into the feet, the heels, the soles of the feet, the balls of the feet. Move around to the tops of the feet. Finally down into the toes. And then we'll focus on the toenails. Be attentive, be patient, open up awareness. See if any sensations can be detected in the toenails. And sometimes there will be just a very subtle feeling of energy or pulsation. So we're aware. The body has entered this state of what we call calm abiding. Samatha is the Pali word for that. And now we can bring our awareness once again up to the top of the head, starting at the scalp again, but this time at your own pace. Just move your awareness back down through your body. You can do it slowly if you like, but you can do it more quickly. Sometimes with a breath cycle, it can be helpful to move through. Breathing in, I'm aware of my face and the sensations there. Breathing out, I release tension. Then moving downward, breathing in, I feel sensations in my neck. Breathing out, I release tension. And you can move through your body in this way, more quickly if you prefer. Moving down through the body though, take note of the places where tension has come back since the first round through. Sometimes we'll notice that the jaws got tight again, even though we let those go a few minutes ago, or the shoulders shrugged back up, or the belly tightened again. So these are areas where there is habitual tension in the body. When we have experiences, say you're out driving and someone slams on their brakes in front of you, and you get that terrible jolt of adrenaline, kind of that electricity feeling through your body as you slam on your brakes. And for a few minutes that feels really unpleasant. It's a very powerful feeling. And you tense up as a result of that experience. Well, after a while, you've kind of let go of the traffic incident, but the tension in the body remains. Maybe at a lower level, but it's still there. And that tension, it replays the difficult emotions that caused it. So the tension may have been caused by a frightening experience, but now the tension continues and it causes the frightening experience, just the feeling of being unwell or anxious. So as we notice these places where tension returns, we can begin to pay special attention to them as areas of habit energy, letting it go again and again, setting ourselves freer and freer with every moment. And now, once you've had a chance to move your awareness through your body, let's all bring awareness up to the base of the nose. There's a little patch of skin there beneath your nostrils and above your upper lip. Focus on that little patch of skin, and then expand your awareness to include the rings of the nostrils. And then expand them a little further, become aware of the nasal passages. So now, if you can picture it, we have this triangular area of the nose. We're going to focus all of our awareness here now and just be aware of the movement of the breath in and out. So as you're breathing in, be aware that you're breathing in. And as you're breathing out, just be aware that you're breathing out. Sometimes you'll be aware this is a long breath. Sometimes this is a short breath. Just remain aware of the movement of the breath. And try to stay with it for its full duration. From the beginning of the in-breath through the middle, following it as it slows and pauses, and it reverses direction and becomes the next out-breath. And we follow the out-breath in the same way, following it as it slows and pauses and becomes the next in-breath. So we are aware of the movement of respiration. And within that movement of respiration, become aware of the feeling of touch anywhere in that triangular area of the nose. And there is a feeling of touch as the air moves through, as it passes over the skin and through the nose. That feeling of touch is present. If you continue to observe the feelings of touch, you might notice more subtle sensations. Breathing in, the air feels a bit cooler. Breathing out, it feels a bit warmer. Breathing in, the air feels a little more dry. Breathing out, the air feels a little more moist. Sometimes you'll notice there's more air traveling through the right nostril, or more air traveling through the left nostril. So you're just aware of all these subtleties to do with the breath, focusing on them. And for many of us, by the time we get to this stage of the meditation, distractions do start to come up. Again, we'll hear a sound on the road or a sound inside the room, and awareness will go to that. That's the habit of the mind, to go to the sound, to go to the distraction. So if you become aware that that has happened, that's actually a wonderful thing, because this is the moment that you can return your awareness back to the breath, and you let go of that distraction. Just quite automatically it happens. So once you've returned to the nose, just reestablish awareness and continue to observe. No problem, you've actually made yourself stronger in the meditation practice. And sometimes distractions will come as physical sensations in the body. And maybe after sitting for a while there's fatigue or a little ache or pain. And if you become aware of this distraction, your mind has moved away from the breath and is now focused on discomfort, just guide the awareness gently back to the breath. Do it with a smile. Just return awareness, reestablish, continue to observe. And then the third type of distractions that come up mental distractions. We'll be remembering something or planning something, fantasizing about something. And when that happens, the mind gets pulled away from the breath. At some point during that distraction, you will notice it, and all you need to do is guide the awareness back to the breath. And just worry about one breath at a time, just this one. Can I be aware? Can I observe the in-breath? Can I observe the out-breath? Letting go of distractions. So now what we'll do is continue to practice in this way for a few minutes, returning to the nose after any distractions. Spend a few minutes of silent meditation together, and then I'll ring the bell to end this meditation session. Just take your time coming out of the meditation. Take your time returning awareness to the room. Feel free to stand or stretch or move around a little bit. A little movement back into the joints. And you can continue with the feeling of calm abiding and the feeling of the quiet mind that we cultivated in the meditation practice. That's one thing you notice, is that after you meditate, you're able to hold on to that for longer and longer periods of time. And part of the theory that we do along with the practice is designed to help us to keep that going for longer periods, so that finally we have access to all these helpful tools, regardless of what the situations of our life are. So this afternoon or this morning we're going to talk about the least you need to know, again, part 2 this time, continuing on with what we talked about last week. And so I have a handout for everyone. Get my fingers on it. Maybe Jeff can pass them along. So these are study guides. They're not, they're not written in like a complete narrative type form. Thank you so much. But what I'm trying to do is put a lot of the key words and phrases and terms in here that would be helpful to you as you are moving forward in your practice. So I wanted to start with just a little review of what we talked about last week. The 3 truths that we discussed from last week, that this is one of the words that we learned, dukkha. And that word dukkha means dis-ease, unsatisfactoriness, stress, suffering. You could kind of go on and on with different words. But also that this dukkha is prevalent in the human experience. Suffering is prevalent in the human experience. Doesn't mean that all of human experience is suffering. There's a lot of wonderful moments, joyful moments, happy moments, beautiful moments. But there's also moments of, real worry and fear and stress and unhappiness and dissatisfaction. And so we're going to focus on the dukkha part of the human experience, because that's the part we'd like to change and improve on. The second truth from last week is that this dukkha, or suffering, has an observable cause. And the observable cause is, there's actually 3 facets to it. Tanha, which is craving, upadana, which is clinging, and dosa, which is aversion. And then the third truth from last week is that dukkha ceases with the cessation of craving, clinging, and aversion. And then a new word we'll be introducing this week is nibbana. The cessation of dukkha is called nibbana. And it's important to note that the fact that the cause of dukkha is observable is important, because if we can figure out the cause of something, we can also figure out how to end it. And that's really cause for great optimism. So again, sometimes people say we start to do these studies and we're going to talk about suffering and we're going to focus on suffering. And so it sounds very pessimistic, it sounds very negative, but really, you could look at it almost like going to a doctor and having a doctor examine you and say, okay, well, here's the cause of your illness. We figured it out. We found it. And so now that we know, we can heal you. We can help you to get better. And so really, this is all actually pretty exciting stuff. And it does lead to feeling much better. So now, and don't forget, anytime, feel free to ask questions, share experiences, observations, anything like that. It's always appreciated. So now we move to this word attachment. Tanha, which is craving, upadana, which is clinging, and dosa, which is aversion, are very closely related. Often the Pali Canon uses only tanha, or craving, to represent all three, just to shorten it up. And we frequently use, in the West, more and more, the word attachment to refer to the three causes of dukkha. And this can be helpful because for one thing, it's a single word. It's easier for us to remember. But it also reminds us that there are, in fact, three causes so closely related that they feel like one thing: attachment. And then the next word to review, nibbana. I introduced that a couple of paragraphs ago. Nibbana is a Pali word, Sanskrit, nirvana. Most of you have probably heard nirvana, have not heard maybe nibbana, but they mean the same thing. The word means cessation of suffering. The literal translation for it is quenching or blowing out. And so a powerful visual image would be if you were holding a hot coal in your hand that you had picked up and it's burning, and then you take your hand and plunge it into a bucket of ice water. It's that instant, it's that release, that suffering coming to an end. So that's what nibbana means. It means suffering coming to an end, but the literal translation is quenching or blowing out. But I like that visual image. That's really what it feels like. So to summarize then, in 15 words or less, this is kind of what we arrived at last week and where we'll kind of pick up this week. So to summarize it, we use a lot of these different Pali terms, and some of the explanations are kind of long-winded and sometimes complicated. So it boils down to this: there is suffering. The cause of suffering is attachment. Suffering ends when attachment ends. So really simple equation there. Pardon me for a moment. So then the question is, or the next thing that comes up is, okay, if we know those three truths and we accept, most people, think about that and they say, yeah, okay, I think that makes some sense. Let's continue with it. Let's see how that works. The way to understand attachment and suffering is to look at who it is that gets attached. So just a couple of different scenarios. You're at work, someone insults a coworker. Okay? Or you're at work and somebody insults you. Okay, that's scenario one. Scenario two, you see a stranger drop their phone in a parking lot. And 2B, you drop your phone in a parking lot. Objectively, the same thing happens in both scenarios, but the arising of the thought I and the arising of the thought mine changes everything. Because if you drop your cell phone, your new iPhone, in the parking lot and the screen gets cracked or it gets scuffed up, I mean, that's like, it really, it's an unpleasant thing. It really irks us. If your friend dropped theirs in front of you, you'd probably say, you got to be careful with your phone. I told you should get a cover for that thing so that if you dropped it, you wouldn't break it. It's a total different way of relating to the exact same experience. But the difference is it involved me. It involved I. Same thing with the insults. You hear someone insult a coworker, maybe you're a little offended by that, or maybe you're a little ticked off by hearing that, but it's very different from the same experience, same insult coming to you. So what is it? There's this me, there's this I, and that changes everything. What is true without thought? And maybe just beyond being a header for some of the next items that we'll talk about, if you could just imagine that phrase, that question, what is true without thought? So you hear an insult. If you didn't start to think, oh, that was my coworker and maybe they deserved it, and I don't really like my coworker anyway, so I kind of get a kick out of it, or someone insults me and that really ticks me off because I don't deserve it and this other person isn't that great anyway. I mean, we start to build these narratives around these things. If you were to just say, what is true without thought? What's the truth in the present moment if I'm not adding my own thoughts to it? Like this room here, we're probably all pretty comfortable, pretty peaceful place, really nothing materially wrong in this particular moment. Nobody's, in danger or anything like that. And so you're comfortable, content. There's equanimity. If you were to start to think, oh, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore, I want to go do this other thing, and I really want to do that now. And if that became something firmly entrenched in your mind, this experience would no longer be acceptable to you. This would be suffering, right? Or if you thought about it and you thought, boy, I really like this, I'd like to hang out, I'd like to do this for longer periods of time. Well, then there's a feeling of liking it, But what is true without thought? That's the question I go back to over and over. The truth without thought added to it. The Pali Canon describes, there's a couple of words here, ahankara and mamankara, and I like them because they kind of rhyme, but they are the words that describe the activity of what is called I-making and mine-making. I-making and mine-making. With the proliferation of ahankara and mamankara comes attachment and suffering. So to ask a simple question, how much of your suffering in your life, suffering, discontent, stress, dis-ease, how much of your suffering is caused by taking things personally? And how much suffering could you eliminate if you broke that habit of ahankara and mamankara? So consider for the purpose of practice that the self isn't something we are so much as the self is something we do. As I think about self, you can kind of work through this with me. For conventional purposes, there is a self. I mean, here I am, here we are, we all have a self, it's real. But what is it? What is the self? So if we were to think about that, you might answer the question by saying, well, I guess the self is my body, and it's probably my mind working in conjunction with my body. Okay, take that a little further. What about the mind? Well, I guess it would be my memories of past experiences, the things I like and dislike, and the things I hope to have and happen in the future, and just kind of your whole psychology structure. Maybe that's what your self is. So, okay, that's an acceptable answer to that question. But if you dig into that a little bit, you say, well, this body is myself. Well, the body that we live in today is different from the body we lived in yesterday, and it's certainly different from the body we lived in 10 years ago, and in 10 more years it'll be different yet again. And it's unrecognizable from when we were babies, but it's the same body. But it's like we identify so strongly with this is me, but it's always in a state of change. It's in permanent flux. It's always changing. And last week we talked about that impermanence, that when you're holding on to something that's impermanent, that it's naturally going to lead to some degree of anxiety or stress or dis-ease. So I think it's helpful to kind of look at this thing that we're all so deeply attached to, this I, or this me, or this mine, and what is it? So you could say, and even with the body, okay, this I am this body. Well, what happens if you had an accident and you had to have a leg amputated, or 2 legs amputated? Are you still this body? Well, the body has changed dramatically, but you still have the sense of self. So where is that coming from? It's coming from maybe the mind then, our ideas, our memories, our thoughts. I have a friend who underwent some medical treatment, and as a result of that, his memory was pretty much completely erased for a period of time. Sorry about that. Forgot to turn that off. But I have a friend, medical condition, he had some treatments, and his memory was essentially erased for a period of time. And it was really interesting to talk to him about the idea of self, because it's like he no longer had this kind of long past history. There were certain things he could remember, but just a lot of it was gone. And so his concept of self and who he was very, very different from mine, and was very different from what his was before he had this condition. So it's just kind of interesting. The body is always changing, yet we identify with it as us. The mind is always changing, yet we identify with it as us. So I kind of put that out there as just a way of thinking about this. How seriously should we take this ahankara and mamankara, I-making and mind-making, when the thing we're basing it on is completely impermanent and will change before the end of the day. The things you're thinking about now will not be the things you're thinking about tonight and tomorrow. You'll be thinking different things altogether. There'll be different wants and desires, different fears, different types of aversion. So the self, the I, is always in flux, always changing. So the self isn't something we are so much as the self is something we do. It's almost like we're just sort of categorizing and sort of filing these different personality traits. I'm the guy who likes to do this, and I'm the person who used to do that, and all these little things kind of go in folders in our consciousness in a sense, and we develop this sense of who we are. We get very protective about it, and it is a source of tremendous suffering. If you think about it, how much self-esteem has your attachment to the idea of self really given you? When I think about it, there's some things I'm happy that I did, and I'm proud of myself for doing, etc., etc. But really, for the most part, if you think of the stuff that you associate with self, it's kind of a way of beating yourself up. It's like, well, I'm not adequate in this way. I don't quite look the way I want to. I'm not as smart as I wish I was. I wish, different things like that. I don't know that we could say that the self is a great benefit to us. Conventionally, we have to say, yep, there's a self, and here's what it is. But in terms of the way we relate to it, maybe we want to look at it a little differently. So the sense of self is the result of a particular way of relating to the world around us. Out of that relationship arises ideas of scarcity, potential threats, what is valuable, how we wish to be seen. That's a big one, how we wish to be seen, how we would like to be perceived by others. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. We all do that. We all want to be perceived by others in a positive way. That's part of being a human being. But again, this is talking about, it kind of goes right back to this, what is it that we're calling the I? How much importance do we place on it? If you aren't spending all of your time protecting and serving the imaginary sense of self, I say imaginary, not in the sense that we don't exist, but in the sense that the components of self that we have put together are really just ideas for the most part. They're just ideas. Even the physical self is ideas, you know. It's this body, I'm a Caucasian, I'm a male, I weigh this much, I look this way, I'm this old, you know, this kind of thing. So even that is ideas. If you aren't spending all your time protecting and serving the imaginary sense of self, you'll be so much more peaceful and free. And serving the self is stressful, and it's an enormous amount of work. You could be having a bunch of fairly neutral experiences, and then by introducing the idea of self into the equation, everything takes on an emotional weight and significance. And this is an example of making I and mine. Anytime you become aware of ahankara and mamankara, again that's the I making and mine making, you can drop it, just like you would if you picked up the hot coal. One practice for doing this is to rephrase the narrative in which I and mine proliferates by editing out self-references. So a real simple thing that you can do, and a real interesting kind of eye-opening experiment, is just be aware, be mindful. Like this morning I was doing it as I was washing some dishes. And I was thinking about something, and I thought, I want this or that. I can't even remember what the thing I wanted was, but it was, I want whatever that was. And I noticed in just that I want coming up, that there was some agitation there. It's like, okay, it's telling me I've got to take some action. But then when I kind of backed out the I and just rephrased the question, this thing maybe needs to be done or maybe not. You know, it changed my relationship to that thing that I thought I wanted. So I hope that makes sense. It's something that you can practice with, and just try and eliminate that word I from your dialogue for a short period of time. Try and eliminate the word mine from your dialogue for a short period of time. And as you do that, you just take out those two simple words, everything starts to feel a little different. Because by eliminating those, you're not relating to things in the same way. I think it's interesting in Japanese culture, which I study a lot because I'm trying to learn the language in relation to Zen Buddhism, but also to Reiki, which is a form of energy healing that I'm involved in. And so I've been studying the Japanese culture, and they very seldom use the word in Japanese language for I, or me, or mine. It doesn't come up. It's inferred, but if you were to start using the Japanese equivalent I and me and mine, people would start to look at you like you're a little bit obsessed with yourself and kind of narcissistic. So it's just kind of interesting too to look at how other cultures do this. Of course, the Japanese culture has been very much steeped in this type of teaching for thousands of years, and so you can see why they might be that way. But by eliminating the I and mine, just by consciously doing it and then rethinking whatever it is without the I and the mind, it changes your relationship to it. There's a sutta called the Bahaya Sutta. This one is attributed to the historical Buddha. And when I talk about the Buddha, I don't talk about, the Buddha's not a religious deity or a god or anything like that. We look at the Buddha as a historical human being, kind of the equivalent of Oprah Winfrey 2,500 years ago, or Tony Robbins 2,500 years ago. You know, a person that came upon a system of realization that survives to this day because there's so much benefit in it. So I like to quote the historical Buddha from time to time because there's some really wonderful things that we can learn from it. So I just like to preface it because I'm not trying to convert anybody to be a Buddhist or anything like that. concept doesn't even really exist. Anyway, in this sutta, he was talking to someone who only had a few minutes, and he was trying to beg the Buddha to give him kind of the short and sweet version of a teaching that would set him free. And so he said, Bahaya, you should train yourself thus. In the seen, there should be only the seen. In the heard, there should be only the heard. In the sensed, there should be only the sensed. In the cognized, there should be only the cognized. So what he's saying here is that we'll see something, but right away, as soon as we see that thing, we start to think about it. And we start to name it, we start to judge it, we place value on it as soon as we see something. And that creates a lot of stress in the body and the mind. So if you could just see something and just accept it for what it is, I just see a chair, I see a cushion, I don't have to add anything else to it. I can just say, that's what I see, that's what I see, and let that be enough. So that's true with what is heard, it's true with what is sensed in the body by the skin, and it's true in what is cognized, so anything we become conscious of. And then he says, thus, Bahaya, you should train yourself when for you, Bahaya, in what is seen, there is only the seen. In what is heard, there is only the heard. In what is sensed, there is only the sensed. In what is cognized, only the cognized. Then, Bahaya, there is no you in terms of that. When there is no you in terms of that, there is no you there. When there is no you there, you are neither here nor beyond nor between the two. And this, just this, is the end of suffering. That is a really powerful couple of verses. So just imagine walking out of here, navigating through the day, trying to see things and just accept what you see without judging it. You know, that's a good person, I like the way they look, I don't like the way this person looks. Oh, here's someone who votes for this person, I don't like them. Here's someone who votes for that person, I do like them. I mean, that's our experience. We're just going around looking at pictures, hearing sounds, feeling sensations, reacting. And so much of that reacting is I agree, I disagree, I like it, I don't like it. And that's where the suffering is starting to take root. And so again, it's a simple thing. You're not denying that you exist. We all exist. But what you're saying is, can I just let go of that I part? See how that feels? And when I first started to do this, it was just a profoundly liberating experience. Just walking around, noticing how often I said I and mine and me in my head, and trying to do away with that. And then to readdress the situation without the I, the me, and the mine, without the ahankara and mamankara. And it was just a feeling of peacefulness, a feeling of just not having that dis-ease of constantly being in judgment with the world around us. We see nearly everything through the lens of self, and this leads to more intense states of things like greed, anger, and delusion, which are noted in the canon as being the three roots of unwholesome thought, of harmful thought, because the self can't help but see things compared to what it wants. Remember, though, that this is just a habit. It really is just a habit, a way we have grown accustomed to framing our experiences. Back to that Japanese thing, because in their culture, that I, me, and mine is really pretty much absent, their relationship to all those kinds of things is different. You find in Japanese that, or in Japan, the conspicuous consumption is really kind of frowned upon. It's looked at as like, well, that's kind of an odd thing. You know, if you look at most Japanese people, they have a few possessions. Many of them are old, but they're not super materialistic people. A lot of them are just, they live in a very basic way, but they're satisfied with it. So it's kind of interesting to see that and see it play out in other cultures. Think of some of the ways, though, that this manifests in daily life with phrases like I want, I need, I don't like, this is mine, only this much is yours. When your sense of who you are is riding on every little object and experience, you're setting yourself up for a great deal of stress. Another Buddha reference in the first ever discourse he gave after his awakening, I'll try that word, dhamma-vicaya sutta, which means the setting in motion of the wheel of Dharma. He said of form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness, essentially everything there is, he said, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not who I am. He was saying that he is no longer going to identify with these things. So there's this other word that I'll introduce today, anatta, and that means not self. So that's the word he was using when he was saying, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not who I am. So the things we think we want, that's not you. The things you own, that's not you. The things you're trying to get rid of, that's not you. If you can allow that in the scene, there's just the scene. In the heard, there's just the heard. In the touched or the sensed, there's just the touched or the sensed. In the cognized, there's just the cognized, or just what you're conscious of. Practicing anatta in this way helps us let go of our craving, clinging, and aversion, because the self is the thing that gets attached. Stopping the proliferation of ahankara and mamankara sets you free. So consider how you might navigate through life without an I as a frame of reference. How would that change the way you look at things? Your ideas of self, and I believe this to be true, they really only serve to limit you. You are so much more than your ideas about who you are. You are so much more vast in your talents, in your love, in your compassion, in your spirit than you have any idea. And so when we take all these ideas about who we are and we say, this is me, this is me, this is me, I think we really limit ourselves, And for me, the feeling of being liberated by letting go of some of that has been really helpful. I feel free as a result, and as I've taught this to other people, and as they've started to work with it, there's really been that feeling of freedom with them as well. So, your ideas of self only serve to limit you. Your true nature is limitless and beyond description. Let go of I am this and I am that, and abide is the infinite awareness found when you are willing to let go of attachment. Abide in the equanimity of a mind that rests in wisdom. So that's the thought for this week. Anybody have any questions on it or comments? Did it kind of make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Totally out of whack, kind of makes sense. Yeah, so it's a teaching that you want to take on and kind of work with on a limited basis. And I'm not suggesting anybody walk out of here and just sort of shed all self-identification. But start to play with it a little bit. Just as you're, kind of putzing around the house, all those times you're thinking, I and me and mine. Just notice those. See if you can drop them. Reapproach the same thing without the I, me, or mine. You know? That gets us back to that phrase, what is true without thought? And right now, if you're here and just completely present, what is true without thought? You know, and I guess the answer would be peacefulness. That's what's true without thought right now. You let go of all the ideas. What's true? We're just here. We're just sitting. We're just breathing. You know, sitting with a bunch of other living beings, magnificent creatures. Here we are. This is what's true. Here we are. What's true without thought? Anybody has any questions or comments? I'd love to hear them. Sometimes this stuff's kind of deep though, and it's not like you come up with a bunch of stuff right away. I thought I'd share a couple of announcements with you in the last few minutes. Just in case you are curious. Oh, let me share one quote to kind of close out that the teaching. Pardon me. This is a quote by Ajahn Chah, a really great teacher in the Thai forest tradition. He talks about, he says, just consider. He says, suppose we came to possess a very expensive object. The minute that thing comes into our possession, our mind changes. Now, where can I keep it? If I leave it there, somebody might steal it. We worry ourselves into a state trying to find a place to keep it. And when did the mind change? It changed the minute we obtained that object. Suffering arose right then. No matter where we leave that object, we can't relax, so we're left with trouble. Whether sitting, walking, or lying down, we're lost in worry. And I've had that experience so many times. The thing I thought I wanted, as soon as I get it, now it's like, okay, how do I hold on to that? How do I maintain it? I'm worried about losing it. What if somebody else comes and tries to take it? That can be true in relationships. It can be true in jobs. It can be true with just material possessions, you name it. Just an interesting thing to think about. So, a couple of announcements to share. This class repeats Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. So, if you want to listen to it again, or you just want to come to a Tuesday class, or you want to recommend it to somebody, Tuesdays at 7. The audio for this class will be uploaded to the website, stillknowing.org, within 24 hours, usually less. There's a place to sign up for a newsletter out there, and in the newsletter I send out all the events, along with usually a little mindfulness letter. So you can sign up for the newsletter out on the counter out there. There's also books for sale, the books that I've written on meditation and mindfulness. The orange book out there, The Path to Peace, is quite helpful for an introduction to meditation and mindfulness. There is also a donation box out there if anybody is interested in donating. I'm operating now on donations and then also the fees from some of the classes that we're doing. So every little bit is helpful. But I don't want you to feel like that's, the big deal. It's just people can share when they share. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we have this space now devoted full time to meditation and mindfulness. So if anybody has like a thought for a practice group that they think would be helpful to the community, whether it's a chemical dependency support group or any kind of a group that would be helpful, inclusive, healing, I want to have the space available for that. So if anybody has any ideas or wants to mention it to somebody, if they're looking for a place to do that, I'd like to make this place open to that. And then just a mention of a few classes. In February, we will be having a Mindful Kids class, which is directed for kids between the ages of 5 and 10. I had an opportunity to do some work with about 120 third graders where we did some mindfulness practices with them, and it was really a wonderful experience. We made a little snow globe out of a bottle. They filled it with sequins and beads and things like that. And we use that as a metaphor for our own minds, our own busy minds. We're always shaking them up. There's always so much going on. But we taught them that if you're able to set that down and then follow your breath for a few moments, you can open your eyes and see that your snow globe is settled, and now you can see clearly through it. And the kids really pick up on this as a way of understanding, yeah, that's how the mind is. If I just sit, I can follow my breath, my thoughts calm down, I feel peaceful. The kids really enjoyed this one. And then we did another couple of practices. I did this with a teacher, a third grade teacher. We did another couple practices, which were, one was to have the children imagine that they were a pond of water, that they were the pond. And it was peaceful and calm and clear. And then their thoughts and emotions were fish swimming through the pond. And so they could watch these different fish swimming through, but they realized that they are not the fish swimming through, they're the pond in which all this takes place. And we had some amazing, we gave them a little coloring sheet, and they would color the fish that they saw swimming through their pond and give them little names. And some people would say, I had a mad fish and a sad fish and a happy fish and an excited fish. And, so we learned some things about them. But one girl, she said she learned that she could have a sad fish swimming through her pond, but it didn't mean that the whole pond had to be sad. So it's like, wow, that's pretty profound for a third grader to come up with something like that. And then we did a final practice, which was to draw, give them a coloring sheet where they would color balloons and talk about how sometimes we have difficult emotions that we can let go of. And so color these balloons and name them, and then imagine, we did a little practice, just imagine, okay, I'm worried about, something that's happening in my life. Can I let that go? And just watch it floating away. So we're going to be doing that Mindful Kids class here in February, and then we'll be doing it each month for the next few months. So if you're interested or you know someone who might be, that's going to be available. This is all from the newsletter, by the way. There's a variety of yoga classes, which are in the newsletter. I am going to be doing the Path Out of Depression, mindfulness-based strategies for finding peace, freedom, and happiness. That's going to be happening in March, 4 consecutive Thursday evenings in March. I've done that before and had a really good turnout, really good reaction to it. Also, I'll be doing Reiki practitioner training. I am a level 3 Reiki master teacher from training that I've gone through, and so I'm going to be teaching Reiki, which is an energy healing work, beginning in, February 3rd will be the first class. We'll do those Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Level 1 will be on that first Saturday, level 2 on the second. We'll skip a week and have a level 3. So if you're interested in Reiki in any way, also we'll be doing an intro class to meditation and mindfulness. We're doing a mindfulness-based stress reduction clinic. That's a one-time class. And then a pain management through meditation and mindfulness clinic. That's a one-time class. So again, these are all in the newsletter. If you want to sign up for it, I'll send all this stuff to you, and you'll be up to date on it. So that gives us about 2 minutes before we end. So what I'd like to do is just spend that time cultivating what we call the 4 Brahma Viharas. 4 Brahma Viharas are the 4 highest states of human consciousness. And I think it's really helpful to end these practices with that, because this is kind of the intention we go out into the world with. So we start by considering the fact that, every one of us have made mistakes in our lives, and we've done some things that we wish we hadn't. But you know what? We still deserve to be happy. We still deserve to be peaceful and joyful and well. And so we know this about ourselves. This is true. And so there's all kinds of other people, all other beings in this world that also deserve to be free from this suffering. So we begin by cultivating karuna, which is compassion, by saying, may all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And I say these words, and you can just let them speak for you and just try and feel them. The second is metta, loving kindness. May all beings be surrounded by love and kindness. And the third is appreciative joy. May all beings be joyful and happy. And then finally, equanimity. Upekkha is equanimity. May all beings be peaceful and free and balanced and at a place where they don't feel like they need anything. May all beings be peaceful. And then may you sharing this space with me today. I appreciate you so much for coming. Thank you, and may you all be truly, truly happy. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you. Thanks for coming. I hope you can make it back next week. I'm enjoying the mornings here. I like the Sunday mornings.